Happy New Year, Dub Nation. Dieter Kurtenbach, myself, Cyrus Saatsaz. Dieter, you ready to do this?
Let's make it happen, Captain.
Let's go.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Dieter, how you doing? How was your holiday break? We had one show last week. We're back in action now. You were in Florida. Yeah, what's going on with you, man? What's new?
There's a lot, man. Just laying low, right? That's what you do. I spent time in Florida where most people are on the lam. Did not see Wes Goldberg at all, so I count all of this as a win. And listen, was able to watch that Warriors Jazz game on the plane. I had a couple of outbursts on an airplane. I know that
Nice.
the FAA is warning against unruly passengers. With the way that early part of that game was refereed, I was about to become an unruly passenger. And but all in all, man, I got a little bit of tan going on. I got some humidity up in my system, and the Warriors got a really impressive win over the Utah Jazz, and that's what we should talk about, right? Because that's a big one.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you take the lead because, and I'm just going to skim over this, but the last week I've been just completely MIA. My dog passed away. For those of you who are dog owners, you can hopefully understand the pain that comes with that. So I've just been hiding under a blanket. I didn't, and on top of that, I'm fighting a cold, which I'm hoping is not COVID. I got it from my stepson who tested negative, but who knows how accurate these tests are. With that said, the point is that I have not been as much of a student of the game as I should have been this last week. So I'm glad you watched the game. What are the takeaways that you got from that Utah Jazz victory?
Well, first and foremost, give it up for Otto Porter, man. He has been unbelievable for this team as of late. And with Draymond Green out, I was wondering how the defense would look. I was wondering how the offense would operate. And Porter, I don't know if it's just a hot streak. This clearly isn't sort of the normal for Otto Porter, but let's not forget this is a guy who's made a ton of money in his NBA career. He's no schlub. And while he might be on the minimum for this Warriors team, he's not playing like a guy who's on the minimum. This is sort of the dream, right, for the Warriors. We talked about this all this past offseason. Let's get some ring chasers back in here. We had this great experience not that long ago with David West, who certainly punched above his pay grade in the latter part of his career trying to get a couple of rings. And I think that most Warriors fans, and myself included, thought that this could be a year where the Warriors would get back into that sort of ring-chasing ball game with free agents. And it didn't really work out that way, if we're being honest.
Right.
The top guys went to Brooklyn, they went to Los Angeles, and the Warriors kind of got holding listen, it was a secondary option, maybe a third option marketplace. And I know a lot of people weren't thrilled about it. But both Nemanja Bjelica and Otto Porter have given the Warriors big minutes this year. Porter, it looks like an absolute steal, especially when you compare him to some of the other guys. Patty Mills excluded in Brooklyn because he's been incredible. He looks like a steal on that minimum contract thing, and he's come up absolutely huge over the last 10 days or so. 9 of 14 from the floor against Utah, 20 points. And what I'm loving, and we've talked about, is the defense. He's not Draymond Green. Nobody is. But when you play Gary Payton II as your starting two guard, your defense is going to be elevated. And Otto Porter, I think, is a much better defender than I ever gave him credit for early in his career. And I think that he's even surprising the Warriors with how good of a defender he is. He's playing a lot of the five now. You put Looney in there, and Looney was, I thought, really good against Utah. Wiggins, who has been playing like an all-star, one of the best players in the league in the Western Conference this year. I don't know how, if we want to say league, it's probably a more wide blanket of judgment, but he's certainly been one of the best players in the Western Conference this year. Curry, who has been crazy good on defense. I'm loving this five-man lineup. I'd like to see more of it. I know guys are going to come back. Klay Thompson's going to return to the lineup. James Wiseman's going to show up. Obviously, Draymond might play tonight against the Miami Heat because he's out of COVID protocols. But I want to see more of Wiggins, Porter, Looney, Payton, and Curry. There's something really nice about this, and it was the driving force force in my estimation behind a very big win over a Utah team that I think I'm building up some legitimate disdain for in a very short period of time. I don't like to bag on the referees, and we know that the referees are eating it right now when it comes to COVID and stuff. Well, listen, you can. What is and isn't is what is called. I'm trying to take a stoic mindset to this sort of a thing, and there's a lot of G League guys out there, and it's tough. It's a tough job, and it's made even tougher when everything's up in flux. But boy, Utah. I know that they play. I like Quinn Snyder. I think that they play a very attractive brand of basketball when it's clicking.
Agreed.
But boy, they're kind of annoying. I don't know how to put it any lighter. Like at the end of that game, I was begging for a 7-game series because I'm like, I needed. Maybe I'm just trying to place the disdain that I had lost over the last 2 years, like this empty part of my black heart that was once filled by hatred of the Houston Rockets and James Harden's style of basketball. And while the style of basketball is appropriate and something that should be lauded, I don't think I like the Utah Jazz, and it's honestly an indictment on me that we've made it this far into the season, and I may be just discovering this about myself. But Rudy Gobert sure wants a lot of credit for just being a tall guy, and I didn't find him to be all that impressive. And Mike Conley was flopping all over the place, and I don't know. It felt as if, especially when you take into account the home court whistle they were getting, which was prodigious in that contest. It really did feel as if Utah sort of enjoyed being the foil to the Warriors. And you know what? Credit to them. I'd love to see a worthy adversary. We've talked about this a bunch. Like, I have a hard time feeling negative emotions towards the Phoenix Suns. I can build it up for the Utah Jazz. I think we might have something here, and they're a damn good team, and I would sure like to see 7 of those. I think the Warriors would win in about 5 or 6. I feel confident in that, and certainly Saturday's game a great example as to why. But there's a little something there. I think the Warriors felt it a little bit too. And hey, now you know you're really in basketball season. We're starting to get a little bit of hatred amongst us.
And when we say hatred, I always like to say sports hate, right? It's not like genuine hatred, but
I would love it to be genuine hatred. That would make our lives a whole lot easier. But in fact, it's just a general irking that comes along with playing highly competitive games for millions of dollars.
But that's the beauty of sports, right? I mean, the rivalries, and you develop these emotions that are completely irrational against other individuals and teams. The Otto Porter Jr. thing is fascinating in the sense that you mentioned his that allegory to David West. I mean, the difference is Otto Porter Jr. I think is like 8 years younger.
Right.
And this is a player, and the similarity is that they're both. David West was a former All-Star. I can't remember if Porter was an All-Star, but he played at that level. That's why he earned that huge contract.
He made All-Star money, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And so the Warriors are stoked. Honestly, like my one concern with Otto Porter Jr., and I know I'm looking way ahead, is how are you going to keep this guy after the year? Because I don't think you can offer him much more money besides the mid-level exception. It reminds me of the Bobby Portis situation in Milwaukee, where they couldn't offer him a ton of money either. But he came back, and then hopefully the following year is when they can offer him the big money. But
my big concern with Porter is how do they make sure that he keeps those legs fresh, right? Like there's a reason the guy was on the minimum, and they've been asking a lot of him lately, and he's been coming through. It's been a really nice scenario for both parties, but I don't recall too many. I think there's been a couple too many veterans rest days. They probably need to start once they get back to full health. And again, I do think that moment is coming sooner rather than later. They need to figure out some ways to get Otto Porter off his legs, because I think he's going to be a critical player for this team.
Yes.
When they shorten the rotation to 9-8 guys, and most teams at 7-8 guys. For the Warriors, it's going to be 8-9 guys come playoff time because strength in numbers and all that. Porter's going to be a huge part of that. And I think that, if he gets hot, he's going to be closing games. It's been just such a wonderful pickup for Golden State, and I think that even if it isn't as good as it has been over the last couple weeks for the rest of the year, we can all just chalk this one up as a big win for Bob Myers and a big win for Otto Porter, too, because of what you just mentioned. There are going to be people looking to give him more money than he's gotten, and that will be up to him. But that's a long ways away, and maybe there's a ring in between now and then, and no hard feelings if that's what happens all said and done.
Yeah. No, in all honesty, the only person or group taking the L in the Otto Porter Jr. signing is the entire rest of the NBA.
Right.
Because when we come back from this quick timeout, I want to ask you, and we'll both get into this, what the ideal Warriors closing lineup is going to be, because that might be sort of a conundrum. So we'll talk about that. And I've Dieter, I finally figured out the share screen option for the YouTube viewers, and I'm having a delight with it. So we're going to actually select our all-star teams when we come back too. Real quick though, first. Fantastic. Yeah, right. So yeah, that's coming up fairly soon. But first, I still haven't had a chance to try it yet. I'm waiting for my package to arrive of Built Bar. You've tried it. You've raved about it.
And that's a legitimate raving. They're paying us. Let's be real. They're paying us to say this, but I've had Built Bars before. I've purchased Built Bars with my own American currency.
Oh, there you go. That's a true endorsement. That's a true endorsement.
Stuff.
And for a lot of people, when the new year comes, you have those ridiculous resolutions that most people don't stick to, but they try. And at the top of the list is always weight loss and increasing your health. Well, Built Bar can actually help you get fit. It could actually help you eat healthier. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. It's easier to stick to your resolution with Built Bar. You want to eat healthy. It gets so boring. By week 3, you might be thinking, this is just not worth it. Where's the chocolate? Built Bars are in 100% real chocolate. The best part of all these Built Bar reads, Dieter, is that where they tell you about dipping it into a piping hot cup of, and then you get
dry, but to each their own.
All right, fair enough. Well, anyways, there's so many flavors.
You make it happen, dip it into hot chocolate. I think it's kind of defeating the purpose of the whole healthy lifestyle if you're just drinking hot cocoa. But maybe you're just enjoying it for the sweet Built Bar flavors. And if that's the case, knock yourself out. I'm here because I'm trying to get stacked, and Built Bar is going to help me with that. That's what I've learned from these reads over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, I love it. And both our favorite flavor, I believe, is cookies and cream, but there's a lot of flavors to choose from. Just go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15. Again, the promo code is LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Built Bar. Check it out. It's delicious.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysts from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. I've been a guest on there. It is a fun time. Dieter, closing 5. Let's say it's the Western Conference Finals. Okay. Warriors, Suns. I don't think the Warriors going to play the Jazz, in my opinion, because I think it's going to be Suns, Jazz in the second round. So the Warriors going to deal with the tough Grizzlies team or someone else who sneaks in there, maybe Dallas. Who's the closing 5? 5 minutes to play. It's game 5. The Warriors going to close the series out to go to the NBA Finals. Do you like those little digs I'm throwing in there at the other team? It's going to be a 5-game series. So who's your starting 5? I think Steph's obvious.
Closing 5.
We're going to make the assumption that Klay Thompson will be back at 90%, so he's going to be in there. Draymond Green is in there. Who are the other 2?
Honestly, as of right now, I think let me backtrack and show my work first.
Okay.
You have to remember who the head coach of the team is. And Steve Kerr is going to err on the side of defense, right? He wants to make sure that his team can get stops. It doesn't matter who you throw out on offense. Steve Kerr is petrified of the concept of not being able to get defensive stops. And it makes sense. This team is predicated on getting out in the open floor, and you're not getting out in the open floor if you're picking the ball up after it goes through the hoop. I've heard it a million times, And it's true. And you see the Warriors at their best, especially in a league where offensive rebounding is non-existent. You see the Warriors at their best when they play great defense, loose balls, steals, long rebounds, go, go, go. And that applies even in late game scenarios because most teams want to slow it down, get into half court v half court. So Gary Payton II would be part of the closing lineup in my estimation. Because of what you also have to think about this, right? You have Wiggins and you have Clay. I don't know what Clay is going to be right now. We can hope and perhaps even presume that Klay Thompson is the old Klay Thompson. But Klay Thompson versus Chris Paul has always been a tricky matchup because Klay's much bigger and Chris Paul is really deft. And I think that you need somebody out there for Devin Booker, obviously.
Yeah.
And you need somebody out there for Chris Paul. And while Steph Curry has been incredible on defense this year, you'd rather just have him on Jay Crowder hanging out in the corner so that he can sprint down the sideline going the other way. You have Draymond at the 5, though you can make the argument you might want to go with Looney over GP2. I like having the backcourt defensive presence that a GP2 provides. He can do the Jay Crowder thing, hang out in the corner. We've seen that as of late. He's been absolutely marvelous as a three-point shooter, though he did have a very low bar to start, so everything has been a bonus. You have Clay, you have Wiggins. You can do the two-corner system off a high pick and roll with Draymond, with Clay as sort of a trailer or Wiggins as a tight trailer. I think that would be the best closing 5. You have a guy in Wiggins who you can put right on Booker, or you can put Clay on him. You have a guy who can just hound CP3 in GP2. You keep Steph out of the fray so that he doesn't find himself in foul trouble. You let Draymond play free safety because you feel confident that you have great on-ball defense against the two on-ball guys. And by the way, I think you just have a man advantage across the board there if you play GP2. So that's where I would lean, though. Listen, you can make an argument for so many other players. And Steve Kerr probably will not have a locked-in 5. It will be something that he feels out. Some nights it might be, and I'm not even joking about this, it might be Jonathan Kuminga. It might be somebody, they want more athleticism on the floor, and they want somebody to help out Draymond with that athleticism and the ability to go outside and in on defense. I mean, obviously you can make the case for Andre Iguodala and just the intelligence and the smarts. Jordan Poole for the shooting. Otto Porter for the shooting.
Exactly.
I mean, Bielitsa as a playmaking 5 next to Draymond if you feel okay about your general defense. I mean, this is the best part about the Warriors' depth. It is pliable. It is malleable. You can mix and match guys, and you don't feel like you're giving anything up. And that has been the key to so much of the Warriors' success. I mean, obviously, it's Steph Curry, and it's Draymond Green, and it's Klay Thompson, and it's all the great players that this team has had, and Kevin Durant. But it's also, hey, we don't fall off as hard as other teams fall off when we mix and match with lineups, and we can find ourselves the right pairings for any given night. And sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time over the last 7 years, it has. And I think that Steve Kerr and Mike Brown and all the assistant Alvin Gentry before that, they deserve a lot of credit. And Bob Myers deserves a ton of credit for building teams that you can mix and match lineups. You don't have to get locked in on sort of this 5-man unit, this 4-man unit. Everything is very pliable, and that pliability makes them unpredictable. And that unpredictability, when you have this level of basketball intelligence, is an advantage, not a detriment.
Yeah, it is insane to me that this Warriors team went from being a play-in that didn't even make it to the playoffs, and just a year later, you added 4 vet mins in Iguodala, Otto Porter Jr., and Gary Payton II's influence is incredible. Bielitsa, and now they're the best team in the NBA. You're absolutely right with Bob Myers. Going back to that Phoenix Suns game on Christmas, which to me was an incredibly convincing game. It kind of put the NBA on notice, like, we're the best team in the league from the Warriors.
Right.
The matchup I saw that was like I fell in love with immediately was Draymond Green guarding Chris Paul. Because it really flustered Paul. It really, I saw Chris Paul just basically going, damn it. They put the one guy that actually gives me problems. And then I saw Gary Payton II at times guarding Aiden. I mean, it's insane. A 6'3" guard is suddenly become such a valuable defensive piece.
I don't know if that matchup's going to work if they go at it about 5 to 10 possessions. But the ability to switch everything is that trademark Warriors defense. And Peyton, because he's a 6'3" power forward. I mean,
it's crazy.
He's Jay Crowder with 5 fewer inches, or maybe even 7. It allows the Warriors are a really stout defensive team. I think that maybe
incredible.
It's still being glossed over, like how stout, how impressive they can be, especially when they lock in. And I think that that's just part of the DNA now. We made the joke that Draymond Green was going to win Defensive Player of the Year with the games that he didn't play because the Warriors' defense might fall apart without him, right? Well, they didn't. Yeah. I mean, listen, Utah executed fairly well. I'm unimpressed by their lack of athleticism, but they got their buckets, and they certainly went to the free throw line enough. And Phoenix was able to score a little bit as well, and Memphis was able to score. Like, listen, it's never going to be as good as when Draymond's there, but I like the defensive DNA of this team. I feel like they're all bought in, and they know what they're doing on that side of the floor. And for a team that, as you mentioned, has had so many moving parts going into this season, I mean, listen, 4, 5, 6 different new players and now more coming in, for them to feel as established and strong as they are currently is really, really something to be applauded. This is not normal. You think about all the teams around the NBA right now that are just trying to figure it out, and everyone goes, oh, they still got time. The Warriors took absolutely no time to figure out how to be one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. And while the offense has been a little bit of a roller coaster, they have Steph Curry. They should be okay on that side of the floor.
Oh, and Clay's going to come back hopefully in the next week or two. When we come back, we're going to pick our all-star teams. Let me talk about Clay for a minute and so much more right after this.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. All right, so I'm going to try this share screen option. For those of you listening, we're obviously going to discuss.
We'll verbalize it.
Yeah, we'll verbalize it. But all right, so this is the NBA's official page if you want to select your all-star team. And let me get this set up here real quick so that the screen looks good.
Oh, yeah.
How are you liking that aesthetic? Look at that.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, right? So, all right. So in the West, I think you and I would easily agree that Stephen Curry gets a vote, right?
I think that Steph Curry is going to be a starter in the All-Star game, yes.
Yeah, pretty obvious. Who's the second person here?
I'd make the case for Chris Paul. I think it's hard to argue that Chris Paul hasn't been as valuable as any player in the league this season, certainly going in towards last. He might not be as well liked around the league, but listen, I can make a case for John Morant. He's missed some time. Chris Paul has just been steady. The Phoenix Suns have been steady awesome. I think Chris Paul has to be the guy if we have 2 spots in the backcourt.
There you go. And I'm disagreeing with you for the simple reason that the Suns' regular season has been so impressive that they need at least one starter. So totally. I'm not going to argue with you there. What about the 3 forwards?
There's 2 obvious ones, right?
Go for it. Who are your obvious ones?
Well, the obvious ones are LeBron James and Nikola Jokic, who are bona fide MVP candidates. I mean, it doesn't even come particularly close. I know that LeBron and Warriors fans don't always necessarily see eye to eye, but take a step aside for a moment, and we don't have to laugh at the Lakers to admit that, my goodness, LeBron is having an absolutely dominant season. He has been marvelous for that team. That team sucks, but he has been marvelous for them. And
with the exception, he's missed a lot of games, though. I mean, that people should take that into consideration because his stats technically don't count yet. Go ahead, sorry.
He's LeBron James. When he's on the floor, you feel every inch of him. And Nikola Jokic is. Listen, I think that Jokic is the number 1 contender for MVP with Stephen Curry. We can make the argument for Durant. We can make the argument for Giannis. I think it will be a really close race when it's all said and done. But Ayton has been awesome. I would have him on my All-Star team, but Jokic has been unquestionably a starter and should be a starter in the front court. So
I agree.
The third one's
20
tough though.
It is. Real quick, I just want to add with Jokic, those 2020 games are, I don't think that you should understate how difficult it is to achieve 20 points, 20 rebounds a game. And he's pulling that fairly consistently lately. So I agree with you on that. Yeah, the third one's tough. I mean, I for the sake of just, we are the Warriors podcast, I want to pick Wiggins. I do think he deserves it. What are you going with?
It's tough because I want to put Ja Morant in there, but he's not a front court guy. I
No.
want to put Paul George in there, but he's out for a while now. I don't think he plays for another couple of months. I mean, I would argue Draymond Green over Andrew Wiggins.
Interesting.
I don't really even think that's much of a conversation. It's tough. There's not a lot of front court dudes. Now, is Devin Booker qualify as a front court guy? Or is he a backcourt guy in this? That's the thing.
He's a guard.
I don't like
guard.
this backcourt, frontcourt thing at all. Just give me the 5 best players, man. It's an all-star game. Who gives a damn?
I hear you. But with the restrictions we have, who are you going with?
I would vote Draymond Green.
There we go. I'm with you on that too. I think
Paul
Wiggins
George
is
being a very close second.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And Wiggins, I think, certainly will merit consideration for coming off the bench. But there you go. So that's our. Go ahead, sir.
I think Wiggins makes it. I mean, the guys that you have to consider, Donovan Mitchell, who I'm just not the biggest fan of in general, but Donovan Mitchell's an all-star. Devin Booker is an all-star. Paul George is an all-star. I think you can make an argument against Damian Lillard this year because the Blazers are doo-doo, but he's going to be an all-star.
Doo-doo.
Ja Morant is unquestionably an all-star. Like,
without
Ja
a doubt.
Morant's one of the 5 best players in the Western Conference. I would go DeAndre Ayton over Rudy Gobert.
Easily.
I don't think that's going to end up being the case. Draymond, Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns deserve some consideration as well.
Yes, he does.
So, listen, I don't think that Wiggins is going to get voted in when it's all said and done, just given everything that's happening with injuries and the like, COVID. I do think Andrew Wiggins plays in the All-Star game, and the Warriors have 3 guys on the All-Star team, though this might be the largest All-Star team in the history of the NBA All-Star game, given everything that's going on that could prevent people from actually playing in the damn game.
Right. Good call on that. So that's these are at least for those watching on YouTube visually, these are our Western Conference starters. And just for the podcast audience, Stephen Curry, Chris Paul, Draymond Green, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic is our starting 5. And the Eastern Conference, let's real quick. Who's your starting backcourt there? I mean, DeMar DeRozan, I feel like's earned it. He's had such a incredible start to this year. The Bulls have the best record in the East. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's 2 Bulls. I think that Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan deserve to start in the All-Star game.
No disagreement there.
I think you can very easily make the argument for Trae Young. I get that.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry deserves consideration. James Harden is going to get a lot of love. Darius Garland is in that conversation as well. But given the way that the Bulls are playing as of right now, if we're putting in our vote today, I mean, damn, DeRozan and LaVine have been so good. I don't know. This is just the old Chicago homer in me. Like, I'm going with the Bulls, baby.
I love it. I have no disagreement with you on that. And clearly, at least for me, my picks for the Eastern Conference, I have very little bias there. So I'm with you on that. Let's go with the Bulls backcourt. And then for the front court, Kevin Durant and Giannis, I think and I guess Embiid is it pretty easy there? I
think it's bang, bang, bang. I don't think there's much of a conversation, right? Like, Embiid has unquestionably been the best center in the Eastern Conference. Not that that's a distinction that's asked to be made in these all-star things anymore. And then it's Giannis and Kevin Durant. Of course they're starting and on the team. They're 2 of the best players to ever grace an NBA floor, and they're playing both at I think an MVP level. Giannis has been insane over the last about 2 weeks, and Kevin Durant remains a scorer, I think, without peer, perhaps in the history of the entire league. So, I'd go with those 3.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Do you feel like there's any credence to the latest rankings for the NBA's MVP. To me, Stephen Curry, I know this December is always a slow month for him. All these people who are now saying maybe Jokic deserves it, Giannis deserves it, Durant deserves it. I think all those voices are going to be quieted down in a month or so. But for now, you're hearing a lot of arguments. Do you think they're valid? Like, do you think Stephen Curry is not the overwhelming favorite for MVP right now?
I think those are kind of two different questions, right? Like, I do think that statistically, bookie-wise, Steph Curry is the overwhelming favorite for MVP. I get that.
Right.
I think that there's a much larger conversation to be had. And I just think that at this juncture right now, it doesn't behoove anyone to discount anybody as an MVP. I think that all we're doing right now is we're just sort of separating the fat from the liquid, right? Like, we're just figuring out
yes.
We're figuring out where the gold is, and it's pretty clear that there's about 5 players that I think deserve legitimate, who are going to be in it, and that doesn't include a Chris Paul. That's LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Giannis, Kevin Durant. And I mean, is there a bull involved in that? Maybe it's just 4. Maybe it's just those 4 guys. I mean, so I didn't mention Jokic. I'm sorry. So 5 with Jokic.
5,
That's and maybe that's Jokic's big problem. We just don't do it. It's been fascinating over the last couple of years to see the way that this narrative award is handled. Jokic obviously winning last year, an uninspiring victory, sort of won by default in a lot of ways. Not to take anything away from him, but nobody is like, oh wow, Jokic, a year for the ages. Everyone's like, I guess we have to give it to Nikola Jokic because he was the best player, but sort of like had this season been at all normal, maybe not. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of things that can happen for better or for worse. Those are your 5, and I would say that Steph probably has the upper hand. Steph is the strongest of the 5 digits on the hand there. He's the thumb, but listen, the way that Durant can go thermonuclear, the way that Giannis is playing, all of these guys, and this is what makes it so interesting to me, like all of these guys have had their moment. All of these guys are there's no surprise in this group. There's no guy who's, on the up. This is all dudes who have been MVPs of the league. And that takes away one element of sort of this narrative, well, not sort of, it's a narrative award, which is, oh, we should give it to this guy because he hasn't won it yet, or that guy just won it, let's give it to this dude. And that goes back for decades and decades. I remember when Karl Malone won it over Michael Jordan.
Oh, it still pisses me off. That still pisses me off.
Well, because Michael, blank, blank, and blank. And you can make the same case for LeBron. Well, he'd win it every year. Now, no one can make the argument for or against anybody on the basis of history. It's all about this year right now. And the defining factors will come in the months to come. And I think it's going to be really awesome for the league. And honestly, the NBA could use it a little bit to have a true, bitchin' NBA MVP race, because it's been a minute, and those are the kind of things that can grab some casual eyeballs.
Yeah, and God, when you bring up that Karl Malone MVP, there's a few that are incredibly egregious, and to me that was one of them. And you and I will agree to disagree on LeBron being in consideration. For me, it's just a simple fact that he missed so many games, and the Lakers are a 500 team. If they're better, I might reconsider it. Statistically lately, he's been killing it. I'm not disagreeing on that, but I need to see a little more. Before we wrap things up, the Warriors play the Heat tonight. The Miami Heat, to me, and I reached out to Wes Goldberg. I completely forgot that this game was tonight, and I reached out to him last minute. He wasn't available to join us. But I think the Heat, to me, are a legitimate contender for the Eastern Conference crown. I don't think they're going to beat the Warriors if they face each other, but I think they're underrated. In my opinion, if the Heat and the Nets play each other in the playoffs, the Heat win that series. But give me your and you might disagree with that. That's just these are obviously very subjective opinions. We can go into it in detail on another show. But for tonight's game, it's the Warriors and the Heat. What are your takeaways and what are your predictions for tonight's game?
Well, first and foremost, I have no idea who's on the damn Miami Heat anymore, given their COVID situation. They're an exceptionally well-coached team that plays hard on both ends of the floor. Kyle Lowry is underrated a player over the last 10 years as I think exists in this league and perhaps in all of North American professional sports. He's been fantastic for the Miami Heat this year because what else would you expect? They have systems. They have ways of going about their business. They're established even when they have constant turnover. I would expect it to be. How about this? I'll err on the side of it being closer than not. But at this juncture, I mean, my stance is very clear. Nothing matters until Klay comes back. So if the Warriors get blown out by 40, I don't care. And if the Warriors win by 40 against the Miami Heat, maybe I'll care a little bit. But I think that as of right now, with everything going on around the NBA, around the world, and going on with this team, just pace yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
Understand that when Klay comes back, it's a whole new team, and they got to figure out everything new again. And I think it will obviously go for the better, but this is just a weird in-between period that they've had since that Christmas game, and there's been more good than bad, no question. But let's not worry too much about what happens in the Miami Heat game tonight, unless they're just absolutely awesome, in which case, start mapping out the parade down Market Street.
And I'm looking at the preview right now. The line opened at 8.5. It's gone up to 11.
Wow.
And the Heat are missing a lot of players. Besides the obvious, Markieff Morris is out, Duncan Robinson is out, PJ Tucker's out, Max Strus, Bam Adebayo still has a thumb injury. I don't know, like Damian Lee, I'm hearing speculation he might come back tonight. I don't know if you've heard anything on that.
Does that move the line, Cyrus? I mean, are the bookies really like locked in and being like, "Oh, Damian Lee's in tonight. We got to."
No, I'm just no. And I don't know if Wiggins is playing. I mean, I thought he played. It's saying here he's out, but I thought he already came back. So I'm confused about whether or not Wiggins plays tonight. But
regardless of who's in and who's out, all you want to see is solid defensive rotations. And if Steph Curry is on the floor, get the ball to that guy.
Exactly. So Dub Nation, enjoy the game. Dieter, a pleasure doing this with you again.
Always.
And thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Dieter, you're going to be hosting tomorrow, and then we'll be doing this together again on Wednesday. I'm always excited to do that.
Sounds like
yeah, exactly. Anything you want to preview for tomorrow, or
no? We'll break down everything that happened in the Heat Warriors game. So whatever disengagement I have now, just know that it will be the exact opposite post game when I record this podcast.
And you can follow Dieter on Twitter at Dieter. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. And you can follow this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. All right, my brother, you'll take the helm tomorrow, I'm sorry, and then we'll be back together on Wednesday. Take it, everyone.
All mine.
Later.